The afternoon of Saturday, August 16th, began like any other in Illinois, with stifling heat and a heavy air that seemed to portend something. What no one imagined was that in a matter of hours, the entire state would be trapped under one of the longest and most destructive storms in recent years. The sky began to darken early, and before the sun had set, the first lightning strikes lit up the horizon. This wasn't a passing downpour, but the beginning of a system that would remain active for nearly 17 hours straight, unleashing its fury on cities, towns, and entire communities. The first emergency reports came from Belvidere. The wind roared with such force that power poles were uprooted and giant trees collapsed on homes and vehicles. Firefighters described the scene as chaotic. More than 50 calls in a matter of minutes, crushed cars, blocked roads, and families trapped without knowing what to do. Experts later confirmed that what occurred, there was a microburst, a downward gust of wind capable of reaching speeds comparable to those of a tornado, but without the characteristic rotation. This technical difference mattered little to those who experienced it. For them, it was as if an invisible giant had furiously struck their streets.
I was the first one on the scene.
The system didn't stop there. As it moved eastward, Mount Prospect was the next target. A violent blast of wind lifted part of the roof off an apartment building. Water poured into hallways, pipes burst, and debris rained down on parked vehicles. Dozens of families had to evacuate in the middle of the night, leaving behind belongings that were ruined within minutes.
Dude!
The building was declared uninhabitable. For many residents, that night became the beginning of a nightmare, with no safe place to return. Some took shelter with relatives, others waited for help from the Red Cross while trying to process what had just happened. Meanwhile, in Chicago, the danger took another form. The overpasses began to fill with water and within hours became death traps for vehicles. Entire cars were submerged, and in southwestern neighborhoods like Archer Heights and Gage Park, basements flooded so rapidly that some reached waist depth.
Dude!
Desperate people shared videos on social media bailing out water with buckets and brooms, while others cried for help because they couldn't leave their homes. The water advanced relentlessly, flooding avenues, main roads, and even forcing the temporary closure of the Stevenson Expressway near Pulaski. Around 2 a.m., a new, even more powerful storm complex crossed northeastern Illinois and reached Indiana. Between 2 o'clock and 3:30 a.m., wind strengthened again, reaching gusts of up to 67 miles per hour. McHenry, Kane, DuPage, and Will counties were hit simultaneously. Uprooted trees blocked roads. Downed power lines crackled on dark streets. And thousands of people woke with a start to the crash of branches falling on roofs and windows. In Algonquin, a huge tree collapsed on 3 parked cars. In Cary and Palatine, branches crashed through homes and blocked several streets. For emergency crews, the early morning hours were a constant challenge. Rescues, power outages, and endless calls for help. While the winds left a trail of destruction, the rains continued unabated. In some parts of the metropolitan area, precipitation reached between 2 and 4 inches per hour. A weather station in Oswego reported more than 6 inches of rain in less than half a day, 5 of them concentrated in just 4 hours. That level of rain was enough to paralyze entire parts of Chicago. Drivers were trapped in flooded passes, and many had to abandon their vehicles to seek safety. Homes struggled with water rushing in through basements and collapsed drains. The result was a massive blackout. At the height of the storm, more than 200,000 ComEd customers were without power across the northern part of the state. Entire families spent the night without electricity, in stifling temperatures, unable to refrigerate food or charge their phones to call for help. Although 90% of service had been restored by Sunday night, tens of thousands remained without power as Monday began. In many areas, fallen trees on power lines impeded technicians' progress.
I was the first one on the scene.
The effects were also felt in daily life. At O'Hare International Airport, flights were temporarily grounded, and hundreds of passengers faced delays. For those traveling that night, the storm was not only a danger on the ground, but also an obstacle in the air. In McHenry County, 70 miles per hour winds swept through everything in its path from Fox River Grove to Woodstock. Further south, in Romeoville and Lisle, vehicles were trapped under fallen tree branches. Several streets remained closed for hours, blocked by debris that hampered emergency cruise access. The impact was as diverse as it was overwhelming. Flooded homes, wrecked cars, impassable roads, and a collapsed power grid demonstrated the magnitude of the disaster. This was not an isolated event. It was a system that devastated everything in its path.
Ventanas son de cristal, de vidrio.